Do you still remember the cast of Barney Miller? They once made all of America laugh. But after 50 years, terrible things happened to many of them. From incurable illnesses to family tragedies to shocking deaths, their 5-decade journey is marked by a long trail of pain. Join us as we uncover their stories and honor the legacy they left behind. Abe Vigoda as Sergeant Philip K. Fish. Abe Vigoda was born on February 24, 1921, in New York. He was 54 when he became Sergeant Philip K. Fish, the weary but deeply humane veteran cop in Barney Miller in 1975. Fish became an icon, but behind that hardened exterior was a man carrying far too many wounds. His first wife left him because of years of poverty that clung to him like a shadow. His second marriage ended in even deeper tragedy. His wife died after a long battle with illness, leaving him alone at 71 in a quiet, empty home. These losses darkened his later career, as he no longer had the strength to shine the way he once had. Arthritis made every step feel like needles stabbing into his bones, limiting him to only a handful of small roles. Worse yet, starting in 1982, he became the constant target of the recurring false rumor, "Abe Vigoda is dead," turned into an ongoing joke across Hollywood for decades. He later admitted how traumatizing it was to be treated as a punchline. That psychological blow pushed him further into isolation, living a solitary life in his final years. Abe Vigoda passed away on January 26, 2016, at age 94, dying peacefully in his sleep at his daughter's home in Woodland Park, New Jersey, during heavy winter snowfall. His net worth was only about $1 million, a modest sum, but fitting for a man who gave far more to the world than he ever received in return. Hal Linden as Captain Barney Miller. Hal Linden was born on March 20, 1931, in the Bronx, New York. He was 44 when he became Captain Barney Miller, the gentle, steady hand who kept the 12th Precinct together amid the chaos of New York City and Barney Miller in 1975. The role made him a star, but it also placed immense pressure on him. A series that ran for 8 seasons meant 12 to 14-hour shooting days, slowly draining him both physically and emotionally. His seemingly solid marriage to Frances Martin was worn down bit by this exhausting schedule. Their 4 children grew up with him mostly absent, while Frances carried the weight of the household alone, while Hal tried to balance work and family through brief, desperate attempts at family time. By the 1980s, his body began to protest. Arthritis, heart strain, and unexplained pains forced him to reduce his workload. Those accumulated stresses followed him well into later life, and when Frances died in 2010 from heart disease, the loss shattered him. His later marriage to Karen Wright was tender but fragile. Age and the fear of loss created a distance neither could fully bridge. Even so, he continued his artistic path, appearing in small roles, performing jazz, and holding on to what remained of the career that once burned brightly in the 70s and 80s. In 2025, Hal Linden is 94 years old, still alive but with declining health, involved in the arts only within his limits. His most recent appearance was a guest role on Hacks, 2024. His net worth is estimated at around $10 million, the sum of nearly 70 years of work and a lifetime of quiet, steadfast dedication. Max Gail as Detective Stan Wojo Wojciechowicz. Max Gail was born on April 5, 1943, in Detroit, Michigan. At age 32, he took on the role of Detective Stan Wojo Wojciechowicz, the good-hearted, slightly clueless but deeply compassionate Polish-American cop who appeared in 170 episodes of Barney Miller, beginning in 1975. Wojo brought a down-to-earth warmth to the show, but behind that innocent charm was a man whose real life was marked by decades of emotional wounds. Max Gail's first marriage fell apart early on. He and his first wife, Willie Beer, had 3 children, but soon found themselves drowning in conflict, exhaustion, and unresolved resentment. The breakup left him so hollow that he slid into alcohol and cocaine abuse in the late 70s, right as Barney Miller was becoming a hit. Willie Beer later died of cancer in 1985, pushing Max into the darkest depression of his life, a wound that never fully healed. The 1980s and 90s were a long, quiet struggle. His spin-off Wojo's Girl failed, and small roles like DC Cab, 1983, couldn't salvage a career that seemed to be collapsing. His second and third marriages were filled with tension, separations, schedule conflicts, emotional distance, leaving him increasingly withdrawn and hopeless. His health also began to betray him. After getting sober in 1991, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, forcing him to completely restructure his life as even simple movement became painful and exhausting. In 2025, at age 82, Max Gail appears on stage or in podcasts only when his health allows. His role as Mike Corbin on General Hospital, which earned him 2 daytime Emmys, stands as a late-career triumph. He now lives quietly in California, taking on low-pressure roles and rediscovering purpose through intimate stage work. His 2025 net worth is estimated at around $3 million, a modest but meaningful testament to a man who rebuilt himself from the ruins of his own mistakes. Ron Glass as Detective Ron Harris. Ron Glass was born on July 10, 1945, in Evansville, Indiana. He was 30 when he became Detective Ron Harris, the stylish, literature-loving, sharp-witted detective with a polished charm who helped define Barney Miller starting in 1975. Harris became the intellectual anchor of the series, but that calm sophistication stood in stark contrast to the shadows that followed Ron Glass in real life. Marriage was his greatest silent pain. As a gay man in an era when Hollywood was deeply prejudiced, he was forced to hide the long-term relationship that meant the most to him, living in fear of being blacklisted or losing roles if his truth ever came out. A lifetime of secrecy left him lonely and wary of the media. After Barney Miller, he faced another heartbreak when Firefly was canceled abruptly, an event that sent him into a depression, as if the last dream he had held on to was suddenly ripped away. His health declined early. He had suffered from asthma since childhood, battling sudden attacks for decades. By the time he reached 60, the condition worsened, making every recording session, voiceover job, and public appearance a physical struggle. Still, he kept working, voicing characters in Rugrats, All Grown Up, and appearing in Serenity, 2005. But his body increasingly refused to keep pace. Ron Glass passed away on November 25, 2016, at age 71, due to respiratory failure. He was laid to rest at Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier, California. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $2 million, a small number, but a powerful reminder that he walked through life with nothing but his own resilience. Steve Landesberg, as Sergeant Arthur P. Dietrich. Steve Landesberg was born on November 23, 1936, in New York. He was 39 when he took on the role of Sergeant Arthur P. Dietrich, the calm, intellectual detective with encyclopedic knowledge and razor-sharp, dry humor who became the quiet heartbeat of the 12th Precinct. Over 123 episodes, Dietrich provided a steady, cerebral presence. But outside the show, Steve was a man consumed by insecurity and loneliness. His marriage to Nancy Ross fell apart while Barney Miller was airing, strained by work pressure and the social anxiety that made him increasingly avoidant at home. The collapse of his marriage left a deep psychological fracture. He grew so fearful of emotional commitment that he never entered another serious relationship. His anxiety grew so severe that he once walked out of a stand-up show minutes before going on because of a sudden panic attack, costing him contracts and damaging his reputation in the comedy circuit. After Barney Miller, his career spiraled. Small roles on The Simpsons or For Richer or Poorer kept his name afloat, but depression gradually pushed him further from Hollywood. When he was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2010, he kept it secret, refusing chemotherapy because he did not want anyone to witness his physical decline. Steve Landesberg died on December 20th, 2010, at age 74, in absolute silence. He left behind an estimated net worth of $1.5 million, modest for a man once nominated for 3 Emmys. Ron Carey, as Officer Carl Levitt. Ron Carey was born on December 11th, 1935, in Newark, New Jersey. He was 40 when he took on the role of Officer Carl Levitt, the short, ambitious patrolman constantly trying to prove himself among his taller colleagues, on Barney Miller beginning in 1975. Levitt brought grounded humor to the show, but he also reflected Ron's own struggles off-screen. His 38-year marriage to Sharon Mann seemed stable, yet it was filled with long, quiet nights created by his constant travel, heavy work schedule, and an invisible exhaustion that clung to him for decades. Sharon became his caretaker through numerous health scares, from pneumonia to blood pressure complications, while Ron routinely returned home drained from years of struggling stand-up gigs in New York. After Barney Miller, Ron continued to battle for roles. His series Have Faith, 1989, collapsed after only a few episodes, plunging him into depression as he felt forever typecast as the ambitious little guy. Small parts in Mel Brooks films and the occasional commercial weren't enough to hold him in the spotlight. His health worsened as he entered his 50s. High blood pressure, chronic pneumonia, and recurring migraines left him unable to sustain long workdays. Ron Carey died on January 16, 2007, at age 71 from stroke complications at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. His net worth at the time, about $2 million, came mostly from his long run on Barney Miller and scattered guest roles, closing the chapter on a life that spent too little time in the light and far too long in the shadows. Jack Sue as Sergeant Nick Yamana. Jack Sue was born on October 28, 1917, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was 58 when he became Sergeant Nick Yamana, the calm, witty Japanese-American officer known for brewing the worst coffee on television and offering gentle smiles that often hid something deeper, on Barney Miller in 1975. Across 89 episodes, his character became the peaceful anchor of a chaotic precinct. But Jack's real life was a story marked by survival and deep scars. His marriage to Susan O. Shaw lasted nearly 3 decades, but beneath the surface was the ongoing struggle of a Japanese-American family still bearing the wounds of World War II and years of discrimination. As a young man, Jack had been incarcerated at the Topaz internment camp, enduring hunger, humiliation, and cold, memories that stayed with him for the rest of his life. Just as Barney Miller finally gave him the late career recognition he deserved, Jack's body began to fail him. During Season 4, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Even as chemotherapy drained his strength, he returned for 9 episodes in Season 5 because he didn't want to disappoint the fans. Jack Sue passed away on January 11, 1979, at age 61 at UCLA Medical Center, the first cast member of Barney Miller to die. The Season 5 tribute episode became one of the most emotional moments in sitcom history, the entire cast lifting cups of coffee, laughing and crying as they remembered him. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills. His net worth at the time was only about $500,000, but his legacy endures as a deeply human story of a man who survived war and won the hearts of millions. James Gregory as Inspector Frank Luger. James Gregory was born on December 23, 1911, in New York. He was 64 when he portrayed Inspector Frank Luger, the aging, nostalgic, war story-repeating veteran whose old-school charm brought laughter to Barney Miller viewers starting in 1975. Over 63 episodes, Luger became the embodiment of the old guard, But in real life, Gregory was a man quietly wrestling with the isolations of old age. His nearly 60-year marriage to Ann Miltner was the foundation of his life. But after she passed away, his home became unbearably silent. With no children and no close family nearby, he became a lonely figure within his own final years. His career was steady but never explosive. After roles in The Manchurian Candidate and Beneath the Planet of the Apes, he gradually shifted to supporting parts and then faded from the screen after Barney Miller. In the final phase of his life, he suffered from mild heart failure and deteriorating eyesight, leaving him unable to perform on stage or in front of a camera. James Gregory died on September 16, 2002, in Sedona, Arizona, at age 90. He was buried at Sedona Community Cemetery, beside the wife who had loved him all his life. His net worth at the time was estimated at around $4 million, mostly from classic films and small investments, leaving behind the unforgettable memory of the thunderous voice that fans still remember. Gregory Sierra as Sergeant Chano Amengual. Gregory Sierra was born on January 25, 1937 in New York. He was 38 when he became Sergeant Chano Amengual, the fiery, passionate Puerto Rican detective who carried an unmistakable sense of cultural pride throughout his 35 episodes in the first 2 seasons of Barney Miller in 1975. Despite his short run, Chano became the series' strongest Latin presence, blending outrage and humor into one unforgettable character. But in real life, Gregory Sierra's romantic life spiraled through years of heartbreak. His first marriage collapsed quickly as he struggled to find footing in Hollywood, and his second marriage also ended under the pressure of constant travel, no children, and a complete lack of stability to hold them together. His career was just as uneven. Growing up in the rough streets of Spanish Harlem, Sierra chose Shakespearean theater over the local gangs, but Hollywood only offered him scattered supporting roles, from Sanford and Son to AES Hudson Street and a string of short-lived series. Even when Miami Vice opened a major opportunity for him, he left the show after just a few episodes because he couldn't adjust to life in Miami. In his final years, stomach cancer that eventually spread to his liver left him exhausted and frail. Gregory Sierra died on January 4, 2021, at age 83 in Laguna Woods, California, after a year-long battle with cancer. His net worth was estimated at around $2 million, a modest sum for a talent Hollywood never fully appreciated. George Murdock as Lieutenant Ben Scanlon. George Murdock was born on June 25, 1930 in St. Louis. He was 45 when he took on the role of Lieutenant Ben Scanlon, the stern, icy internal affairs officer whose rigid presence and sharp authority brought a tense edge to more than 20 episodes of Barney Miller starting in 1975. Though never a lead, Scanlon was unforgettable, becoming one of the series' most quietly intimidating forces. Murdock's career was steady but never meteoric, leaving him repeatedly frustrated at being trapped in roles that cast him as the rigid, unpleasant man. Even on stage, from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof to Chicago Conspiracy Trial, he was boxed into the same tough-edged mold. But his real tragedy was his health. Over 40 years on sets and stages weakened his lungs, and toward the end of his life, advancing lung cancer caused severe coughing fits, blood loss, and exhaustion. He was forced to abandon numerous voice roles, including some that had made him a familiar name, like Dr. Salak in Battlestar Galactica and various powerful characters in Batman, the animated series. George Murdock died on April 30, 2012, in Burbank, California, at age 81, passing away in the arms of his wife, Catherine, and her son. His net worth was estimated at around $1 million, a modest but fitting reflection of a career marked by dedication, discipline, and a quiet resilience that outshone any role he ever played. Barbara Barrie as Elizabeth Liz Miller. Barbara Barrie was born on May 23, 1931 in Chicago. She was 44 when she joined Barney Miller in 1975 as Elizabeth Liz Miller, the patient, steady wife of Barney, appearing in 37 episodes and offering a subtle emotional counterbalance in a show dominated by men. Liz became the quiet heart of the series, but behind her composed presence was a personal life far more turbulent than most ever knew. Barbara married director J. Harnick in 1964 and had 2 children, but her demanding schedule across Broadway and Hollywood constantly pulled the family thin. In the 1970s, at the height of her success with Company and various Broadway classics, she struggled to balance motherhood and career, leading to years of exhaustion and tear-filled silences at home. Her brilliant career only deepened her private struggles. After her Cannes-winning performance in One Potato, Two Potato, 1964, and her Oscar-nominated role in Breaking Away, 1979, Barbara began to realize her body was failing her. In 1994, she underwent treatment for colorectal cancer and later lived with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a condition that left her voice fragile and breathing difficult. She turned to writing children's books about illness as a way to heal herself from the inside. In 2025, Barbara Barrie is 94 years old, still living in New York with extraordinary resilience despite declining health, occasionally appearing in off-Broadway shows and small charity events. Her net worth, about $8 million, comes not from her time as Liz, but from a lifetime of serious, heartfelt artistic work and pages written during some of her darkest nights. Jack DeLeon as Marty Morrison. Jack DeLeon was born on December 19, 1924, in New York. He was 51 when he portrayed Marty Morrison, the witty informant and the first openly gay recurring character on American television, in Barney Miller in 1975. During an era when Hollywood was still cautious, Marty was a groundbreaking role, subtle, human, and far ahead of its time. But Jack's private life stood in stark contrast to the courage his character represented. He chose to remain single not because he didn't want love, but because his same-sex relationships had to be lived in secrecy, shadowed by fear, distance, and the constant pressure of being found out. The emotional toll pushed him into long stretches of anxiety and depression. After Barney Miller, Jack tried to keep his career alive through voice acting and guest roles, from Sergeant McPherson in Halloween is Grinch Night to Dullaghan in the animated The Hobbit, 1977. But his health steadily declined. Heart disease led to kidney failure, sending him in and out of hospitals and forcing him to abandon multiple projects. He continued appearing in different strokes and various sitcoms through the late 80s, but colleagues noticed how tired, shaky, and slow he had become. Jack DeLeon died on October 16, 2006, at age 82 in Los Angeles due to complications from heart and kidney failure. He was buried at Mount Sinai Memorial Park in Simi Valley. His net worth at the time, only about $500,000, reflected a career limited by industry prejudice, but also stood as proof that he spent his life opening the door for LGBTQ representation on television. John Dullaghan as Ray Brewer. John Dullaghan was born on November 27, 1930, in Brooklyn, New York. He was 45 when he joined Barney Miller in 1975 as Ray Brewer, the gruff informant who appeared in only 5 episodes but added a gritty, street-level realism to the series. Behind the stern on-screen persona was a private life marked by quiet fractures. John married Anne Bright Peters and later Michelle Bordier, but both marriages unraveled under the weight of relentless stage schedules, constant travel, and the insecurities that haunt a career built almost entirely on supporting roles. The result was years of profound solitude. That emotional strain pushed him into periods of despair, especially when his roles on Hill Street Blues and Battlestar Galactica failed to elevate him beyond the bit-part actor label. His greatest struggle, however, was his health. Decades of smoking to cope with long nights in theater and on set left his lungs severely damaged. His lung cancer diagnosis came late, and he hid it the same way he hid many of his disappointments, quietly, while trying to keep working. By the time he appeared in California and Apollo 13, colleagues noticed his slower steps and labored breathing. John Dullaghan died on January 18, 2009, in Calabasas at age 78 from lung cancer. His net worth, about $1 million, came mostly from more than 60 plays and numerous television guest roles. It was not a glamorous life, but an honest one. Stanley Brock as Bruno Binder. Stanley Brock was born on July 7, 1931, in Brooklyn, New York. He was 44 when he played Bruno Binder, the eccentric, offbeat suspect whose quirky charm brought genuine laughs to Barney Miller in 1975. Appearing in 7 episodes, Bruno stood out as a memorable spark of humor amid the show's heavier police cases. But off-screen, Stanley's life was far stormier than any character he ever portrayed. A divorce early in life left him drifting from New York to Hollywood, trying to build a career yet constantly trapped in small comedic roles with unstable pay. Through the late 70s and early 80s, he juggled acting with low-paying office jobs just to stay afloat, a strain that led to constant arguments and ultimately another painful breakup. The pressures of the industry and his personal upheavals took a rapid toll on his health. He developed heart disease in his early 50s, but continued working, pushing himself through guest roles on the A-Team, Quantum Leap, and other shows. Co-stars recalled moments when he had to pause mid-scene due to chest pain, only to return moments later with a forced smile. Stanley Brock died on January 25, 1991, in Los Angeles after a sudden heart attack at age 59. His net worth at the time, about $800,000, was the result of hundreds of small roles and also a testament to a life spent working tirelessly despite Hollywood's tendency to see him only as a supporting face. Linda Lavin as Detective Janice Wentworth. Linda Lavin was born on October 15, 1937, in Portland, Maine. She was 38 when she joined Barney Miller in 1975, playing Detective Janice Wentworth, the sharp, tough, yet deeply compassionate female officer who appeared in about 15 episodes across the first 2 seasons. Janice was a refreshing presence in a precinct full of men, both strong and vulnerable, paving the way for depictions of female police officers on television at the time. Though her role was brief, it unexpectedly launched Linda's career into the spotlight. But behind that success was a private life far more chaotic than any episode she ever filmed. Linda went through 2 painful divorces, first with Ron Leibman, then with Kip Niven, whose bitter split left lasting emotional scars. Years spent shuttling between Broadway and Hollywood pushed her marriage into cycles of distance, arguments, and long-lasting loneliness. At the height of Alice, Linda found herself smiling on camera but crying backstage. Even her performances were shaped by this turmoil. Janice's toughness, Alice's resilience, both carried traces of the wounds she silently endured. Life grew heavier still when her health failed her just as her fame resurfaced. In 2019, Linda was diagnosed with lung cancer, a blow that devastated her physically and emotionally. Though she eventually recovered, the months of chemotherapy left her voice raspier, her breathing uneven, and forced her to step away from the stage that had defined her entire life. Her brilliant career, with Tony Awards, a Golden Globe, and iconic roles like Broadway Bound and Alice, suddenly felt fragile, making her treasure every remaining moment more than ever before. In 2025, Linda Lavin is still alive at age 88, continuing to work gently on small projects in New York, taking only roles she can comfortably handle and devoting most of her time to family and community arts programs. Her estimated net worth is around $6 million, built over decades of work in theater, television, and music. She may no longer be the tough Janice of the precinct or the gritty Alice behind the diner counter, but she remains a symbol of endurance, a woman who lived, loved, broke, battled illness, and still stands strong after everything. Every member of Barney Miller carried a story soaked in tears behind the laughter of the past. But which story haunts you the most? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow us so you won't miss the next tragic journey through Hollywood's hidden histories.